What's up, this is Jake with Hike 734, and today I got the perfect day to explore the amazing vistas along Grand Ridge in Olympic National Park. The trail starts out over at Obstruction Point and then works its way along Grand Ridge, going past a handful of peaks, and then gradually ends up over at Deer Park. And you can do this both ways, or part of it from either side. So I started out, dropped down, and this very first part, as you skirt below Obstruction Peak, is probably the most likely chance you'll find snow, if you're going to find snow on the trail as you're starting to get into summer. But it was easy to navigate, and you're looking down into the Badger Valley, and I skirted below that, and it kind of started getting a little bit of elevation. There was a little bit of an overlook to look back along the road to Obstruction Point and get a little glance over at Klahani Ridge and Hurricane Ridge. It is really cool. So from there, the trail just kind of travels gradually up and gradually down through just amazing Alpine, and got to see the Olympic marmot and a bunch of birds and just a bunch of the really low growing flowers. This landscape does not receive a lot of moisture, so it definitely has a lot of dry shrubs that are very hardy, but they're also fragile, so stay off of them, give them a chance. But as I traversed further along the ridge, little tiny unnamed lakes kind of made themselves known across the valley. And as I continued to traverse, you start to be able to look more up the Grand Valley where Grand Lake is, and there's a really cool waterfall below Grand Lakes, which looks really huge. I'm excited to see. Maybe I'll get close to it when I take that trail up. But the further I walked, the more I was able to look up that drainage, and eventually got to see Moose Lake, which sits above that. And but yeah, just really cool visuals, just great epic landscapes. There was one little spot where I was able to get my first peek over at the Straits just north of here, and see over into Canada a little bit, and see Mount Baker, and it's just really pretty. And I just continued on. And eventually the trail starts to leave this nice, gently going up and down Alpine section, and it says goodbye to Mount Olympus, and you start to head on down, and it's kind of a steep, kind of reminds me of more of a goat scramble in Glacier when we're climbing peaks. It's pretty steep. It just makes haste to work its way down. But then you start to see Maiden Peak, and you can see the trail as it goes further along, and you can look out almost all the way over to Deer Park, which is your destination far away. But this whole trail is a little over 7.5 miles one way, and I went ahead and did it both ways, so there and back again. So it's definitely a killer day, but my goodness, you have views for days to keep you company. But eventually you drop down that steep section all the way down to a little campsite called Roaring Winds, and you're done with the crazy downhill. And then you start to work your way up a little bit. Then you just traverse below Maiden Peak. And once again, it's just more of these really great Alpine sections, just variations on a theme. And you just get to, you're just looking at different drainages and just different changing landscapes. And also just looking out further and further to the west, you could start to see just the Needles and Grey Wolf Mountain and a few other places that I'd seen before, so it's always fun to see it from a different vantage. After doing that, the trail starts to wrap around onto the east face after Maiden Peak, and then you get a really amazing look over at the Straits, and just you get to look at a bunch of water. And you get to look up into Canada, and you see Mount Baker again, and just really sweet. And that's right before you drop down into the trees. And then you just get into a nice forest section of primarily subalpine fir, and then there's little pocket meadows in here. And what's really fun about this is that it just kind of changes up the different types of plant life, the different types of animals. You definitely see a lot more birds, a lot greater variety as you're looking at a bunch of these forest birds. And anyways, yeah, just really pretty through there, and it's definitely a nice change up. And you kind of start out on the north side, so you get to see more of some of those Straits views of the water for a little bit, but it's really filtered through the trees as you kind of hop between pocket meadows, and eventually you drop in onto the more of the south side, and that's got a little bit more like lodgepole pine, and it's a little bit drier over there, and you get to see kind of over at some of those other peaks, like I mentioned earlier, some of the gray wolf and in the Needles and those kind of really cool peaks over there. But anyways, eventually you just kind of skirt below Green Mountain in the trees there, and yeah, so that's just really just more in the tree section. So you definitely have said goodbye to the really sprawling alpine sections with crazy views all around, and it's just more tree walking. And then that eventually works its way all the way down to a little saddle. It's just this little low point where you join up onto an old road, and then you gain about 400 well, it's about 300 to 400 feet as you climb back up to the ranger station. So at that point, that is the turnaround point. So if you are coming from the Obstruction Point side and all you want are those sprawling vistas, you probably would be good to go like to Maiden Peak, maybe just a little bit beyond that. You'll get some different views there, and then you could probably turn around before you start dropping in the trees. But of course, if you want to experience the whole thing, do that for sure, because it's definitely worth it. It's even through the trees, it's just a nice change up, and it's just a lot of different variety. Anyways, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking the incredible Grand Ridge in Olympic National Park. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and head on over to hike734.com for more goodness.